In school, we have a CS curriculum, but it ends up being one of the more stupid courses I've taken, and it really doesn't prepare you for much, and the teacher doesn't really know CS either. So that's the scene at my school, and outside of the classroom, there's no really support system either. Like, me and my friends move on, we just thought it would be a good idea to bring up some opportunities for kids at my school. We basically did like 3 months of like social media advertising and talked to like every single kid we knew, and then there was not much signups. I think there was like 50 signups, and we set the date to be April 6th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. At like 8:59, I was like setting up the desk, and then Vivon went to the door. He was like doing this, and then there's like just a line of like kids like waiting outside, and then we're like so happy. Like, it was actually crazy. Like, people actually showed up, and I guess that was really fun. We did hackathon. The topic was to use CS to solve a problem in healthcare.
Guys, before we get into the podcast, 91.6% of you guys are not subscribed. So please do hit the subscribe button, since it will help get even crazier guests and blow up the channel. So yeah, let's get back into the video.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Gen Z Fast Lane. Today we have Thomas here, who is a rising junior from Pittsburgh. So yeah, Thomas, why don't you give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a rising junior. I'm from Pittsburgh, and I was born in Shanghai, and I moved to the US when I was in 5th grade. So, that's cool. And then in my free time, I do soccer. I do a lot of cinematography. So, photography and that kind of stuff. And then at school, I mainly do like machine learning, AI, work on that kind of stuff.
Nice. So talking about like school subjects first, what subjects do you take right now, and how's that experience for you?
I mean, my school is pretty special, like special as in a bad way. Like, it doesn't do AP or IB diploma. It's like strangely its own kind of course curriculum. So I guess there's like ups and downsides. So I mostly see it as downsides. But so the problem is, yes, we have quote unquote college level courses, but they don't prepare you for the AP exams, and you're not encouraged to take the AP exam. So even though I did physics, I did bio, I did AD calculus, I did all the stuff that you would normally do, but I don't have the AP exam because that's not what my school encourages us to do. So also the curriculum is like majorly different, I would say. Like my bio class was like not even close to the AP bio class. It just covers different things. I guess it's good in a way, but I don't know.
Is the curriculum just like specialized for your school, or do you know any other schools that are doing this?
Yeah, no, it's like all like individual, like the school made up their own thing.
Gotcha. So moving towards, some of your other, interns and extracurriculars, obviously, you went to the Carnegie Mellon program, pre-college program, doing the computational biology. So could you briefly, expand on how your overall experience with it? And yeah.
Well, I mean, bio, it's basically like applying computer science techniques to like do, for example, specifically what we did was genome sequencing, like to figure out like alignment of 2 genes. And it's actually really interesting. Like, one of the goals of the class was we're able to see like COVID SARS-1, which is I think variants. Like, there's like a whole genome sequence. It's just a bunch of ACTGs, and you can use the computational technique we learned in class to align that with the COVID SARS-2 from 2019. And when you align them, you can see like, for example, like how many like misalignments are happening here. Like, that just means you can easily see like where the mutations are happening in the genome. So that's really cool. Yeah.
So computational biology, I think, is pretty niche down, it's like between biology and computer science, right? What made you fall in love with this industry?
I mean, for me, always knew I wanted to do something in CS, like from a young age, because I started off with like robotics, like not that much programming, honestly. Like, I wasn't one of these kids that grew up doing like coding camps and all of that stuff. Like, I was more like a Lego robotics guy. And then that did include a little bit of like modular programming. So from that, I knew that's something I wanted to do. And then, but like, we often refer to the CS industry as quote unquote cooked. I would say that, like, personally for me, I feel like going to just do straight CS wouldn't be my best option. And I always have a passion for like biology and also like healthcare specifically. So I wanted to like use like computational techniques to like solve problems in other fields. And I think, that's where you should be using the CS like techniques, because in other fields, like biologists and doctors, they aren't as familiar with the things you can do with algorithms and with specifically now machine learning. And I think it's very beneficial to like working in my personal projects and also like, I mean, throughout this course, like you see how like using these like rather like not traditional techniques to analyze data really helps a lot in the field.
Yeah, so in terms of talking more about the computational biology field, before the podcast you talked about how it's not an industry and it doesn't get you jobs. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, still, I mean, ultimately, I don't think comp bio specifically is the field I will go into. I think I still will likely be pursuing a CS degree, but end up doing like working in either biotech or some sort of like not traditional tech company or like do my own startup because like I generally don't find, well, that's kind of going on the detour, but back to the comp bio, I think comp bio specifically, like just talking to the professors and people who's actually in the major, like for themselves, it's more like they kind of like have to go to masters, they have to get a master's degree, and just because there's really virtually no job option you get from undergrad comp bio degree, which I mean it's kind of expected, like I mean because like with interdisciplinary fields like this, like bio is one of them. Another one I looked into is biomedical engineering. Like with stuff like these, where it's interdisciplinary, you actually don't like. You would think, oh my gosh, like this is what the companies are looking for. This is what they want. Some people who can do all kinds of things together. But that it's actually not. Like for example, comp bio. If any biotech industry is looking for somebody who can code, then they would much rather just pull someone from the CS department. Or, if you're a biotech company looking for people to do some like biomedical computation for you, they would not get someone from biomedical engineering. They would just get electrical engineers or mechanical engineers who can significantly outperform their like biomedical engineering counterparts. So the interdisciplinary majors don't actually really give you edge over in the job market, I think. So that's
interesting. So it's basically better to get like a general computer science degree, machine learning or something, rather than having like a mix of computer science and biology together in a degree.
Right, because the nature of interdisciplinary means that you're not going to go as deep into either field. And that's sometimes you would assume that's a really good thing, but as a company, because you're going to have biologists and you would rather just have biologists and like CS people versus one person who can do both mediocrely. Like you would rather have two people who can do each of their fields at an expert level rather than one person who can do both fields, but at like a much less deep scope, I would say.
Got it. So talking about, different companies and institutions. So from your LinkedIn profile, you have worked in like, kind of like, intern work in so many different institutions from, different top universities to, many different companies. So what was kind of your biggest takeaway with all of these internships?
I feel like I mean, currently for context, like I'm right now at UC San Diego and I'm working on, it's also kind of computational bio, but it's not called comp bio. Like my lab focuses on quantitative biology, which is essentially the same thing, but we just do kind of like cellular decoding. It's predicting each cell aging with like, novel, like machine, not even novel, but it's just like using machine learning architectures. And this is what I'm doing right now. In the past, like I've done, it's mostly like ML focused, ML as in machine learning, but I think I did some image classification. I did a little bit of, what's it called, some software development at this one thing. But I think overall, like, I think working at these things, like, for example, I think my first one was in Shanghai and I met some of because I grew up in China and I thought these scientists are just like strange and mysterious people that like won't interact with you on like a daily basis. But when I was introduced to them through, well, this ties into another thing I was doing. I was composing a documentary with one of my close friends in China. And then we ran into these, actually, they were like academicians, which are like the highest level of honor awarded to scientists in China. And we were able to find these people and then be interested in, taking some high schoolers to like shadow and then maybe work for something for you guys. And they're like to our other unexpectation, they said like sure, like they're fine with it, and I was very surprised at that because like I mean, growing up in China, you always feel like you're not encouraged to to like converse with, for example, these like higher level like scientists on like a personal basis. Like it almost feels like that's not something you're supposed to do. But through my own interactions with them, I figured out they're really just as much human as we are, and they made silly dad jokes as well. Like it's pretty cool to see that, and I guess that story ties into a whole of how I felt about my like working experiences, since they're not really like paid or anything. It's just like kind of volunteering, I would say. More it was, in high school it's definitely more volunteering than interning if you look at it, because you're not contributing, like realistically as a 15-year-old you're not contributing that much to the company or to the institution. But they're good experience, I think. Anyways, the biggest takeaway I would say is just learning how to interact with people who are, for example, a lot more experienced than you and are a lot more prestige in the fields that you want to pursue. And I think it's really cool to see how you can work with these people.
Yeah, 100%. So for if there's someone here listening and they're also very interested in, this intersection between computer science and biology, and they want to get, in touch with these higher institutions, what would you suggest for them to prepare in their portfolio? Like, do you think they should develop some sort of skill first, or how should they outreach to these institutions?
Okay, yeah, I think that's a great question. I think personally, some of them I did get help from my family. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I think it's fair. Like high school students, you really don't have that much to show. And I think first tip is like, don't be ashamed of it. I think use your connections as you would. Like, I think I generally, when I have some idea, I would first reach out to my parents who have, of course, a way more expanded network than me. And I don't, people say it's nepotism, but I genuinely think it's just using your connections to your benefit. And I don't think that's something you should be ashamed of, or something you should not do, because especially when you're young. I think if you're 30 years old and you're asking your dad to find you a job, I think that's an entire different subject than if you're a high schooler and trying to gain some experience, right? So I think, if you have connections from like people who you are really close with, I think use these connections. And second, I think, if also with that, you need to, of course, you can't just be like, well, I don't know anything and I'm going to try to work for you, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying, like, to reach these people, you need some sort of connection, whether that's, cold emailing yourself or finding opportunities online or using your connections. But like yourself, you still need to put up something to show for. So I think definitely research the area you want to work into. Like, for example, like, I think for me, I knew I was going to do neural networks work, like mostly building some models here at UC San Diego. So I did some courses on Coursera that are like specializing in machine learning and like deep learning specifically. And then I made sure to master everything in there. And then, of course, also like I always had a decent passion for biology. So, doing well in Science Olympiad biology events for me was really helpful. I also did well in my school biology class, and I think I had the highest class in the grade. But highest class in the class, or wait, that doesn't make sense. Highest grade? No, I said the highest class in the grade. I meant the highest grade in the class. My bad.
All good.
Yeah.
Yeah, super interesting. Yeah, and I think outreaching is definitely, and asking for help, definitely a very important tool to have when you kind of look for different experiences. And I guess just talking about all of your different experiences, at the different universities, which one do you enjoy the most? Like in terms of, the Fudan University, you also did program CMU, you're doing it right now in UC San Diego, and then also the Harvard one. Which program did you enjoy the most for yourself?
I feel like I think there's very different aspects to it. I think besides the CMU program, I think I see these, like, I see what you gain from a program. I think there's your like social/emotional value obtained, and there's also your intellectual value, right? So I think I tend to view these things like as like separate entities, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, I think at CMU and Fudan, there was a lot of social interaction. Like, there was a lot of, I met, cool people. Like, yourself is amongst this. And I think that's a big takeaway I took from CMU. I met people from literally all over the world, from, a lot of Asian countries, a lot of European countries, and some, Europeans living in Asia, Asians living in Europe. Like, it's such a interesting mix, I think. Did you know I met somebody from Alaska at CMU? I couldn't believe it. Like, I genuinely could not believe a person is from Alaska. I thought he was trolling for like 30 minutes. Like, I genuinely could not believe it. But, my point is that I think the connections I gained from Fudan and CMU were definitely an upside. I mean, I think comparatively the like pure knowledge, pure like intellectual growth I had was more at I think Chinese Academy of Sciences. I think a lot more. I don't know if that was on my LinkedIn, but I think a lot more. Huh?
It is, yeah.
Yes, and then I think at like the Harvard course was like okay, like I didn't go in person. It's like an online thing. So, but that was like good knowledge. I think that basically introduced me to the field of CS, so that was good. And yeah, I think comparatively the in-person events gave me more social like gain than social growth.
Yeah, sure. So, with all of these different opportunities, are there any specific metrics or like strategies that you use to, consider if you're gonna take this program and choose this to do instead of like something else for you personal?
I mean, wait, sorry, I got a low battery warning. Do you need to repeat the question again, or can I just fill?
Here we go.
Okay. I mean, I think for me, I honestly just do whatever sounds interesting. Like, I don't know if this is a universal thought process, but for me, I think when I see the description of something, like I feel like a genuine urge to either do it or not do it. For example, like some of the other programs I've looked into, like one of a very similar one is at Chicago. It's called RIBS. It's like Research in Biological Sciences, and that one, like for example, I was choosing that one versus CMU Bio, and then looking at that, like there was like a bunch of checklists. Like the application is like literally like it's like literally the same application portal, but I looked on the RIBS, what's it called? Application portal, and then one of the sections was a checklist of all the biology topics you know. And I'm not gonna lie, I pretty much knew none of them. So that to me felt like like I was doing something wrong because even when I know I'm gonna do something biology, that is like way too bio focused for me. Like I know where my line draws. Like I don't end up wanting to pursue something in bio, so stuff like that would just draw me in the wrong direction. Like I probably wouldn't want to do pure bio research. But versus like at CMU, like there was oh, you're not in that program, but one of the tabs was asking about how much programming experience you had versus how much biology experience you had. So that made me realize, oh, so this is more CS heavy, and that's more of what I'm looking for.
Gotcha. So looking at the program descriptions, I guess like selecting it based on what you're most interested in.
Yeah, and then I mean also like just I think I mean to be like very real, I think selectively matters a lot. Like of course go for the ones that are the most selective. Like if you get in the most selective one, go to the most selective one. I think that goes without saying, but I think personally like I think a high school selectively matters a lot. Like the amount of like the I think the content of these like summer programs are not they don't vary that much. I genuinely feel like you could go to one of the more prestigious summer programs, like for example, like RSI or like SFP. Like I think sure, yes, you do get a lot of more mentorship, but I think like essentially it's still independent research. Like you're not being I generally don't think in a span of like 3 or 6 weeks or like 4 weeks, like the education you get is like that drastically different. So I think selectivity matters a lot because it's more about, I think if it's a more selective program, then your pool of friends, your pool of your classmates are going to be a lot more quality people. I think that's something people don't usually think about, but I think that's because admissions officers aren't, contrary to popular belief, I don't think admissions officers, even like at the high school program level, are like brain dead people. Like I think they make their decisions based on, a valued set of measures, and that ensures that you have people like who are on your social, emotional, and intellectual level. I think that's something people don't think about, but I think, yeah, my advice is be literally just go for the most selective program you get into because the education is more or less going to be very similar.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the same thing with probably also the university, like in the future, like it's about the networks that you make and also the location. So moving towards, the nonprofit that you have right now, you co-founded the first computer science organization nonprofit at your school. So what was the overall, thinking with that? What inspired you to do that?
Yeah, so this one, I mean, it's actually like my LinkedIn wasn't the full picture. I didn't update that for a while. I just got lazy, like, because we just kept changing the idea. So I just forgot. I just like couldn't keep up with like the updates, and I just like left it there. But So basically, I don't really see it as much as of a nonprofit. I just see it as something I'm doing for my community because personally, from my school, I'm from Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is a relatively smaller city, and there's really not a lot of like, even though we have like a sub, like what is it called, like a Google company, like a Google, like a subsection of Google. I don't know what that's called, but like we have like a site, Google site here, but like Pittsburgh doesn't have a lot of CS environment. Like, of course, compared to California and stuff, like, not even, like, I think compared to, like, Washington, California, compared to, like, the East, really not much CS experience, like, for us. And there's really no, like, there's nothing you can do in school and outside of school that enriches your ability to, like, do CS. Like, for example, in school, we have a CS curriculum, but it ends up being one of the more stupid courses I've taken, and it really doesn't prepare you for much, and the teacher doesn't really know CS either. So that's the scene at my school, um and then outside of the classroom, there's no really support system either. Like some schools I know have, these CS clubs, and what you can do is you can do like hackathons, you can do like these USACO, and USACO is like the United States Computing Olympiad, and like it's like that kind of stuff. But for my school, there's really not much of it. I think that's a trend for the Pittsburgh high school community as well. And me and my friends Vaughn, we just thought it would be a good idea to bring up some opportunities for kids at my school. So first of all, we host these like weekly meetings that basically give the kids an idea to look basically intro to CS, and then prepare for the more advanced kids, prepare them for like USACO. And we use this curriculum by one of the like USACO boot camps, I think. And then yeah, like it was helpful for some people. Like I think a few guys got bronze, some of them got silver. So it was, an introduction for most people. And like, of course, as they got to a certain point, they can, learn more CS by themselves. Cause, of course, the things we offer aren't going to be very high level because, ourselves aren't the most experts in the field. But I think it acts as a really good introduction, and just that like little push on the students to start something they always want to start that they don't like in the school. And also like in April, what we did was we basically ran a hackathon in Pittsburgh, and that doesn't really happen. Like we're the first one to do that in Pittsburgh, and surprisingly too, like I can describe it to you, like we basically did like 3 months of like social media advertising and talked to like every single kid we knew, and then there was not much signups. I think there was like 50 signups, and we genuinely thought that like most of them are literally like bots. Like we genuinely thought like most of them are like either joke signups or like kids who just like did it just to like make us happy. Like, does that make sense? So, but then I think it was, we set the date to be April 6th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. But then at like 8:59, we like I couldn't be, I was like setting up the desk, and then Devon went to the door. He was like doing this, and then there's like just a line of like kids like waiting outside, and then we're like so happy. Like it was actually crazy. Like people actually showed up, and I guess that was really fun. We did hackathon. The topic was to use CS to solve a problem in healthcare. And then we gave out some prizes in cash. And then ultimately the final prize is an internship with a Bay Area solar power company. And the person who won is actually doing his term right now. So, yeah, that's nice. Basically what we did.
Amazing, bro. You seem to actually be doing like so many different things. We haven't even talked about the media company that you're doing, and also the software developer part. So like before we go into those projects that you're working on, how do you like manage your time? Like do you use any tools, or like what's your overall strategy of balancing different projects and also academics as well?
Sure. I think I tend to I have like 2 systems that I normally use. So I have a notes document that basically lists all of my priorities. Like I have literally everything I do in like a very ordered format. So I think for most of the school year, like my first priority is research, which is one of the projects I did for science fair. And then I think my second was doing the computer science organization. And then my third one is science Olympiad. And then everything else below that is like the same level, like school, soccer, and then that kind of like everything else is like not as important. But yeah, that's like how I know what to do first. Like if I have multiple things to do, then what should I do first and immediately. I use To-Do list. I'm like Notion personally. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I think Notion is too much. It's like too complex for me. I think the format takes away like because oh sorry, I got a low battery warning. But I think Notion because I'm more of like a perfectionist person type. So if I use Notion, I can't stop changing the format. Like I genuinely can't stop like tweaking. Like I have to make it look perfect, and that, basically for me, it takes away the point of using the organizer app. If because I just keep organizing the organizer app, and that basically like makes it pointless. So I settle with To-Do list, which is just like a To-Do list application, and it's like very minimal. And basically I have like a taskbar for like every project I'm working on. So it's like crystal clear what you need to do. The deadlines are there and the subtasks are there. I mean, I like to have my stuff super like written out. And yeah, I mean, not everyone needs to do that though. I genuinely think that like my friend Vaughn, he has zero form of like tracking anything, and he does as much stuff as me. So I think different people work differently, and it's totally okay. You shouldn't feel the need to a way of organizing your life just because you watch some like motivational YouTuber that was like, you need to do this now. Like I have to like do whatever works for me.
Yeah, interesting. Well, for me personally, just a bit. I have a lot of systems. Like I use a lot of Notion. Like this whole Z-Lane thing is on Notion. Also on Slack, it's totally embedded. So
yeah,
it's just good to keep track of things. So with the overall, the media company, how do you initially start that, and like how does photography play into the future of your career?
I feel like photography isn't really going to do much for me as a career. I view like my artistic pursuits more as like a pure hobby. Like I think I've made maybe like $30 from photography. So I don't think it's a viable source of, and for context, that's from like 35,000 TikTok followers, and I've made maybe like $30 from it. So I don't see it as like a viable way as a career for me personally. It's just like I think the effort versus the return is like way too low. Like unless you want to like commit to full film school and then like actually like like work for like a big cinema company like or like film company, but that's like something I think it's too risky and just not for me. Like for me, I just think it's really simple. Like I mean, it's not even really like a company. Like I just literally just like do it. I just like find inspiration in what I'm like literally like my life. Like if I see something funny, I'm gonna document it. I'm gonna edit it into a style that I find satisfying, and a lot of that comes from watching a lot of movies, knowing what style. I think for me, I know very clear what style of like videos I like, so I can easily like from my recorded footage, I'm like a pre-planned imagery in my head, and then just like edit it out and then post. Like, cause TikTok is a lot easier than like, for example, what you do. Like, it's like more longer form content. Like for me, it's super simple. Like, I don't do this actively anymore just because it's too much of a hassle. Like I suppose very frequently, but it's just like getting like a 10-second clip of like you on vacation, and then think of something you saw at the moment, put that as a caption, post it. I think and then that's happens to be relatable to other people. And I also love recording myself, like just like having a tripod, and then when I like in my feels, I like get the tripod going and then just like sit down there, like move around. I don't know. Like TikTok is really stupid. Like sometimes it's not about like actually having like a plot or like a theme about what you create. Like for me, it's literally just like whatever's on my head, and somehow people found that to be somewhat interesting. I genuinely don't really know.
Yeah. So you didn't really follow like a specific strategy, or you just basically posted on what inspired you?
Yeah, Loki, if I can cuss, it's literally just shitpost. Like it's not that interesting. Like it's literally just like a lot of it is just like whatever. Like right now I see the sunset, it's pretty cool. I'll do some like I don't know what this is in English, like Ring. I'll literally just like do a little bit of cinematography work there, and then edit it, and then put some caption on it, and then just post it. Like it's not that deep for me when it comes to like taking photos, but like that's just for the TikTok part. Like on my own, I did do some like work with like some companies in China, and then also I think right now I'm shooting like for my friend, and then he's going to be an NFL player, so I'm doing that for him too. So I think that's just me being a good friend. But yeah,
Nice. So just so you're using this photography as like more of a hobby, and then like
yeah. Because like I
got
mean,
you.
for him, like an upcoming NFL player, like if he pays somebody to do it, like it's like such a big hassle, and then you have to like spend so much money. But I mean, I know him, and then he trusts me with like my stuff, and I can just do it for free. And like I mean, we joke about how like if he can offer me like 150 a year, like 150,000 a year, I'll literally just quit whatever I'm doing. Like what if he gets like a really big payload from like the NFL, then maybe I'll consider doing it full time. But if that's only if he can give me more than what my job offers in the future.
Nice, nice. So I guess like moving back into the comp sci world. I know we're jumping all over places, but what fascinates you the most in the future? Like, is it like front end, back end, app dev, blockchain, LLMs? Like, what in the computer science field fascinates you the most?
Yeah, I'm honestly less of a CS person than ML person. Like, I'm super into machine learning more, like a lot more than other aspects of computer science. Like, I have no interest in like UI design, web design whatsoever. Like, I generally don't care about like full stack and that kind of stuff. Like, I don't want to do classic CS. I think my interest only lies in machine learning. And I definitely think like, I mean, I don't know if this is too niche, but personally, what excites me is I think the opportunities we have unleashed from unsupervised learning. So in machine learning, get supervised learning and unsupervised learning. And a lot of what we do nowadays is based on supervised learning, but that's just because the quality of our data and like supervised learning, essentially it's basically you have to tell the machine what's right and what's wrong, like from a training data. But then that just that's actually like very limiting because then how good your algorithm performs is exclusively biased on how good, like I always tell people this who don't really get machine learning, like my mom asks all the time, like why can't we, have better models like really quickly? And my answer will be, I think all large models are as good as their data is. And I think that's what's bottlenecking us. And once we can figure out how to effectively do unsupervised learning very quickly, then which we are able to do already, why hopefully more in the future, then when the data labeling, when having quality data doesn't become an issue, then that's when AI starts to take over. Because like for now, for my bio projects with like CS applications, like a big limitation is data. So for example, I'm doing E-cell predictions. Like if you could look at like a fairly young E-cell and predict what it will look like as it ages. And that's very difficult so what we do is called single RNA sequencing. So to get the data, you have to basically do the sequencing on the cell, and that kills the cell. So it's like a very very like what's it called? It's a paradoxic like thing because how can you can't get the correct labeling. Like you don't know what the cell is going to look like when it gets old. Because you kill it by analyzing it. If that makes sense. To get the data, you have to kill the cell. So it's like you never know if your predictions are correct. So that's a big limitation we have right now in bio. And hopefully with unsupervised learning, what you can do is, for example, you can predict, I mean, not predict, you can generally, what am I saying? You can generatively create some images or, for example, RNA sequencing data that reflect accurately of what the E cell is, for example, going to be when it ages. So when we can do that, then that's when I think potential of AI can really come in, is when we fully understand unsupervised learning. Because right now, like I think my approximation is I think maybe 80%. I think a lot more than 80% of the world's AI models are based on supervised learning, and only I think less than a quarter is unsupervised. And one of the most famous machine learning instructors, like Andrew, he's from Stanford, and he says basically like hopefully by like 2030, unsupervised learning can take over, become the majority, and supervised learning can become the minority. And I think that's a future I'm excited to see.
Fun, bro. Even though I didn't really understand a lot of those things, it sounds really, really fun. But yeah, like if there was one thing, like one biggest advice that you have for, let's just say, your future self, what would that be right now?
For myself, I think don't forget the things you love, because that's what I'm doing currently. I think I'm getting way too consumed in like the hustle culture and everything, and I think a lot of teenagers nowadays are doing so as well. And like I'm forgetting the things I like. I like going out to visit new places. Like right now, I'm looking at the sunset. I think it's beautiful. I think kids need to do this more often. Like life isn't just about getting your money up. Like it's not just about winning these competitions, going to a good school. A lot of times, it's as important to like talk to your family, like have genuine interactions with people, like be nice to other people. Like these are things I'm not particularly good at, and I need to really work on. But I guess that's a reminder for myself.
Gotcha. That's how we should end this. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Catch you guys in the next Zealand episode. Good luck, Thomas. Peace.